Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I will show you how I made my Chii cosplay from Chobits. As with any project, I always start by drawing out the outfit so that I get a better understanding of what to make. I decided to use this pattern for the bodice and sleeves. I would draft the circle skirt myself. I modified the pattern so that the front panel was one piece instead of two runched pieces. The first step is always to make a mock-up. If it works well, then I can use this as my lining. It's important to sew your mock-up as you would sew your original piece. Don't forget to use long stitches in case you have to take out some seams for a better fit. Always make sure to press your seams as you go. Make sure to test fit your mock-up and make all the necessary adjustments. I forgot to film my process of it. Whoopsie! When it comes time to making your actual dress, make sure you keep in mind the adjustments that you made during the mock-up. Make sure to use shorter stitches as they are much stronger than the longer ones. I stitched the bodice pieces together, making sure to clip my seam allowance where necessary. I then sewed the lining to match my bodice. Once the bodice and lining were sewn in, it was time to make the sleeves. I sewed gathers along the top and bottom to make the puff sleeve. Once the gathering stitches were sewn in, it was time to gather the top by hand. Once the sleeve was gathered, I set it into the armhole and sewed it in place. Remember to sew 2 lines of stitching around the armhole for extra strength. I trimmed the armhole seam to reduce bulk. Once the sleeves were sewn in, I sewn the lining to the bodice along the neckline. I understitched the lining to the seam allowance as far as I could reach to help keep the lining in place. Don't forget to give your seams a good press as you sew along. I gathered the bottoms of the sleeves and attached red bias along the gathered edge. Since the sleeves are too small to fit on my sewing machine, I hand sewed the bias trim to the sleeves. I used a stitch in the ditch to finish the sleeve cuffs. It was then time to add the skirt to the top. I made my skirt a little too big, so I sewed some gathering stitches and gathered the waist by hand. I then sewed the skirt to the top, lining included. I measured out the length of the zipper on the back seam, then sewed from the zipper marking to the bottom of the skirt. Taking a break from the machine, I sewed the lining to the sleeve using a slip stitch. For the neckline detail, I sewed a length of red ribbon all around. To sew in the zipper, I basted the back seam, pressed it flat open, and sewed the zipper along the seam allowance. When it came time to hemming, I was feeling lazy, so I took out my serger and gave the skirt a rolled hem. The last detail to add to the dress was the ribbon that crosses the chest and ties around the neck. I simply hand-stitched long pieces of ribbon to the front of the dress. To make the little spools for her hair, I used actual wooden spools. I painted the spools with acrylic paint after priming them with gesso. The earpieces were made out of craft foam. I made them in two parts, the top piece, which looks like a half circle with a nose, and the bottom piece, which looks like a 3/4 circle. To make the bottom piece, I glued one of the cut edges of the 3/4 circle to the other to make a cone. To detail the top part, I glued two small foam circles on either side of the nose. To finish the ear, I glued the top piece on top of the seam of the cone and trimmed any excess foam. Once they were painted, I glued two alligator hair clips to the inside of the cone so that I could attach them to my wig. For the wig, I used a Venus and Fairy Blonde from Artwigs Canada. I separated the bangs from the rest of the wig to give them a trim. I cut with an upwards angle to give the bangs a feathered cut. I separated two locks of hair on either side of the wig and tied an elastic band at chin level. I combed out the small tail and used a partially straightened out paper clip to pull the lock through the painted spool. To keep the spool from falling off, I tied another elastic just underneath it. Thank you for watching! If you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And then I will see you next time. Bye!